A federal judge has ordered Rhode Island to stop collecting truck tolls in perhaps a somewhat surprising development, ruling that the tolls unfairly burdened interstate commerce because they only applied to tractor trailers. Rhode Island put up these tolls on its interstates, but by law said that they only applied to 18-wheelers and similar vehicles. And the ruling was that, well, basically this was an unfair burden on interstate commerce because Rhode Island is such a pathetically small state that basically all the trucks that come through it are states trucks from other states. I'm paraphrasing there a little bit, though, but, that's kind of what was going on. Money from tolls used to fund bridge repairs under the state's 10-year initiative is under threat because although they've been collecting tolls since 2018, the judge only gave them 48 hours to stop collecting tolls anymore. Rhode Island has collected about $96 million in tolls in the past 4 years. Road Works failed to fairly apportion its tolls among the bridge users based on fair approximation of their use of bridges, was enacted with a discriminatory purpose as discriminatory in effect. The statute's tolling regime is unconstitutional under the Dormant Commerce Clause. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what the Dormant Commerce Clause is, right? The Commerce Clause, as we know and love and hate and whatever, says that Congress has the power to regulate commerce among the states, right? So that is the active Commerce Clause, right? But the courts have recognized basically an inverse of it, which is called the Dormant Commerce Clause, which basically in so many words says that no state can artificially burden interstate commerce, right? So they can't. This also is put in the Constitution by the fact that no state, for example, can have tolls or levies or taxes on stuff as it flows between states, right? It's part of the free trade of states, right? So a state has a regulation in place. The regulation probably, to some degree, burdens interstate commerce because, of course, everything burns interstate commerce, as we well know from our discussion of various things. So the question is, and doesn't it burden it? It's basically, does it do it in an unfair way? And one of the chief ways you look for that is basically if the regulation either in word or fact targets out-of-state commerce. So, some states, of course, are smarter about this than other states. But if the question basically is this law on its terms targeting out-of-state commerce, or is it by its actions targeting out-of-state commerce? And, there's a lot of ways to look at that. But, if there's a particular kind of commerce that one state doesn't trade in at all, but other states trade in a lot, and they're like, oh, we're only going to burden this commerce, you can kind of look past the fact of its apparent neutrality, the fact that it's burdening out-of-state commerce, especially if it's like coming from one particular state or another. Also, even if it's neutral in its application, it can be a problem if it unduly interferes with commerce. So like different states can have different rules on things that are required for automobile safety, for example, to some degree, but those somewhat burden interstate commerce. So it basically becomes an issue of, is it a problem? And basically what the court is saying here is because this law only targeted the 18-wheelers, right? And the 18-wheelers were basically just traveling through the state as opposed to being interstate traffic, then therefore it's an unfair apportionment of it and therefore violates the Dormant Commerce Clause. At least that's the legal theory they're going with. So the American Trucking Association said the Rhode Island Department of Transportation lacked authority due to this Dormant Commerce Clause. The suit claimed it was unfair because it was targeting out-of-state drivers. The state argued the vast majority of damage done is caused by these tractor trailers, which, to some degree makes sense, but I guess the judge had a problem with it. It was worded. We want to be very clear, the governor and administration do not support and will not implement a tolling program on passenger vehicles. And they're just reviewing the decision now. So there's a lot of different ways they could go about it, but they have to do some sort of a better apportionment of things.